All right. The menu coming from, right, a theater near you. We have Anya Taylor-Joy, Nicholas Hoult, Ray Fiennes, Hong Chow, John Leguizamo, and a whole slew of actors that you will recognize in a dark comedy, but also a thriller in some aspects. We're going to give you the synopsis. We're going to give you the Rotten Tomatoes and audience score, the IMDb, and the cinema score. So, synopsis reads: a couple, played by Anya Taylor-Joy and Nicholas Hoult, travel to a coastal island to eat at an exclusive restaurant where the chef, played by Ray Fiennes, has prepared a lavish menu with some shocking surprises. Nice, vague synopsis keeps you on the edge of your seat. Audience score currently has this on Rotten Tomatoes at an 89%. Audiences have it at 79%. IMDb has it at 7.6 out of 10. And finally, Cinema Score has it as a B. Pretty underwhelming score for a movie I thought was pretty dang good, Ricky Flex. What were your initial impressions of the menu walking out the theater?
This was a great movie theater movie. It's just like it's not like it was a spectacle or anything like a superhero movie or a huge action movie, but it has that mystery and mystique around it, the thriller around it, that audience, a big group of people like watching it with other people is just it's a great environment, and has movie stars on the screen that are performing very well, some performing at a high level that also like captivates you and gets you in really into the movie. And then overall, just the premise itself is so weird, yet it has like uh that darkness to it, but also that comedy that also just blends so well together. And I think Adam McKay, Will Ferrell produced this movie. You really felt that as well. Um, Overall, I enjoyed it a lot.
It was completely non-shocking that we had the credits roll and it says produced by Adam McKay, Will Ferrell. Because this movie, when you watch the trailer, it had some comedic moments, some humorous moments. But really, your takeaway is this is going to be like a horror slash thriller of some kind, primarily a thriller. But what we got here were a ton of laughs. I think I agree. There were some a really great performances here. Uh, Ray Fiennes, awesome as always, right? A lot of mystique around his character, a command the screen type of performance. I think he owns it very well. I think Anya Taylor-Joy, she kind of like felt like the writing was solid by the way that they gave shine to a lot of these talented supporting actors that were surrounding Anya Taylor-Joy. But I thought she kind of exploded in the third act of this movie. Hong Chow as Elsa, we might know her from Watchmen. So funny in this movie. I thought she was her deliveries I just thought were unbelievable, and her lack of empathy and her lack of just doesn't change her expression pretty much the entire movie until the third act. I thought she just nailed it. She understood the assignment. And I also think Nicholas Hoult understood the assignment, and he brought out a type of character that I didn't know he could actually achieve. So I'm just saying all around, I was impressed by this movie. I do think the writing, it was a clever concept. I think it's a great concept, but I do think you can kind of telegraph the concept way too early in the movie, and there was kind of like the overall message felt like it was getting hammered into your head a little bit, right? We're not going to go into spoilers right now, but the criticisms of the food industry, whether it be Instagram, right, foodies and things like that, their own fan pages, when you talk about critics themselves, financiers of these restaurants, and the impact it has on the actual artists themselves and what they think of those people. I think it tells a lot about society today. Some plot holes, I think, when you go towards the third act of the movie that kind of pissed me off. But overall, I couldn't agree more, Ricky Flex. This was an entertaining ride. I think we both agreed walking out the theater.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, I echo everything you said, but also like this over at the end of the day, this was a very simple movie. I thought, and like they through the writing and banging you over the head with some of those themes that you talked about, uh, it could have been done much more discreetly or subtly, much more subtle manner, and it's very predictable. So, like, for the most part, it was clever. The premise was clever. Some of the things they did was very funny and clever. But I think at the end of the day, if you just like tell me if if someone asks like what happened in the movie, very predictable. I could have told you before the movie started, or right when the movie started, just by the tones of the characters and the writing itself throughout. So,
Mhm.
end of the day, like this was entertaining as heck and a good movie overall. But like, is this going to change like thrillers or that dark comedy era, like or movies genre? No, it's not.
I agree. And I think the concept was so easily, I guess, deciphered early on in the movie. Like you almost could see them boarding the boat and you know what this movie's going to be about. Or when Ray Fiennes starts to talk, you're like, I see what they're doing here. And it's telegraphed a little bit. But at the same time, on more of a micro level, the decisions that are made, the twists and turns that happen, like at a spur of the moment, I think were kind of shocking, right? And some of the decisions made right at that smaller scale. You know how the movie's going to end. I don't think they really stuck the landing here. It went a little bit too Hollywood for my taste. I felt like it should have gone a little bit darker in my eyes for such a dark concept. But I think that's why it's kind of separates itself from maybe a thriller that's like in the awards conversation. It's an entertaining theatrical movie, I should say. It has the ending the audience hopes to see, but is it the ending that it should have? I kept being reminded of like successful thrillers that have gone to do well at the Academy Awards. And I kept thinking of like creative ones that had dark humor involved, okay, had you on the edge of your seat. I kept coming back to Get Out. Um, and very unique, very reflective of what society is, except Get Out didn't hammer you over the head with it. They just placed you in the setting and they were very mysterious about it. And then when the third act finally hit, like you were yelling in the movie theater. You were yelling at your TV screen when you were first watching. You're like, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't guess that from the get go. Here, it's more like, yeah, I knew this was going to happen. And then the ending happened. You're like, of course they did this because like Anya Taylor-Joy is Anya Taylor-Joy. That's what I was kind of going with. It's just like I wanted it to take it to that next level and be like, okay, now let's like have the audiences flip out in this moment, but more it's like, okay, they gave the satisfactory ending. Did you feel that at all?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think you said it perfectly when it's like it went Hollywood on us when this wasn't supposed to be a traditional Hollywood movie. And like Adam McKay, very untraditional like movie style as a director and writer. And it felt like throughout the movie, it's like, yes, like I think you all said this well too. Like on a micro level, yeah, it's followed all those similar beats. But at the end of the day, like it didn't follow the traditional Adam McKay, like untraditional format where like you can have a loser or like you can like the main character lose or something like that. Like I agree with you on all parts.
And I do want to say, like, when you watch this trailer, like the dark humor in the trailer, but also like the like Ray Fiennes clapping his hands, it becomes a funny bit in the movie. Like, and they're saying this is a dinner you're not going to forget. I think it's playing on the fact that most audiences think it's going to be a cannibal movie, like from the get go. Like it's kind of trying to play on that. And I mean, that was going through my mind when I watched the trailer. Like, I hope this isn't a cannibal movie because it seems like, oh, they're going to kill somebody and then they're going to eat the person. It just seems like it's right. It's just so predictable. But here it's like, I think they made the right decision. I think they actually said something about the culture we live in. And it kind of made me second guess our career as podcasters because I'm not going to give away because I don't even know if we're going to do spoilers, but I kept thinking of like, what if they made like a movie version instead of like one focused on a restaurant or food? Like, what if we had like Martin Scorsese, right, inviting a bunch of film critics over for a dinner like this? What exactly would happen? I think you could do it with music as well. You could do it with literal art, okay, painting and you like sculpting. Like, you could do it with every single facet of culture and how we take it in, but also how the person, the artist themselves feels about it. I think that was just genius. And I'm surprised something like that hasn't been done, I guess, more consistently in this era.
Yeah, I feel like look at She-Hulk, like that TV show, how it makes
Uh-huh.
fun of like the fans, like who are watching it for God's sakes. Like I feel like we're getting more of these, and this is just the start. And I feel like this is like the start of it at the big screen level, not just a show or streamer.
I did want to go into some of these performances too, Ricky Flex. Like, did you have a favorite? I know Anya Taylor-Joy had the lead here. Maybe we focus more on the supporting and like away from Ray Fiennes as well. Did you enjoy one performance over another or someone that stole the screen for you?
I think the best performance is not one of the main characters. It's Hung Chao's Elsa. I think she did the best job here. And I think it was relatively like it was one note, easy role, but as in like on paper, just the way she like goes about herself in this movie even is just amazing. I was so happily impressed with that. And we all like again, you mentioned Watchmen and there's a bunch of other things that you would recognize her in. But I think in this movie it was just so funny. Like she was also like incredibly funny. And not just like daunting or that like Jeepers Creepers feel, but also like just you were laughing the hardest when she was on screen. And I thought she like had the perfect balance between the far left and far right of you're scared of this person, but you also want to be with this person all the time because they're so freaking funny. So that was my favorite performance by far and away in this movie.
We gel. We gel. Like her literal deliveries I thought were so on point. And I couldn't like I can't I'm gonna say it again. She just understood the assignment. She knew what she had to do for this movie. And she was like the one that greets that like is on the boat, greets them off the boat. Like this is the island, giving the tour, setting that mysterious type of setting. I think she did an incredible job just setting the tone for this movie before Ray Fiennes shows up and then he like has his moment. It felt like they were going back and forth a little bit in the first I guess first act and a half of this movie. And like when you think Anya Taylor-Joy is like going to like step in, she has a lot of mysteriousness and intrigue with her character, and we don't find out much about her until end of the second act into the third. So I think the movie really, I think it was well cast, and I think like these actors like they kind of like killed it whenever they got the moments. Like I was dying at Nicholas Holt's character because that's the type of guy you are laughing at whenever you go to a nice restaurant and someone is snapping pics, right? Phone eats first. Your girlfriend sitting right across from you deciding to take the picture. He played that role to a T. Someone who thinks they know everything about a certain aspect of culture just because they have an interest in it and just because they have an Instagram that is filled with that particular I guess art, you know?
Yeah, I agree. And just to go back to Hong Cho for a second here, or Chow, um, just looking at her IMDb, it's so interesting what she's doing in the future. So like she's gonna be in The Whale coming up. But if you had to think of
Oh,
like
right.
a director that she's gonna work with, that will work with, like that would be a good match for her, right? The Whale, Darren Aronofsky, like I said, she was funny in this movie, but she was also like scary, like Aronofsky. Like that's a nice pairing. But like that's not the first pairing I thought of. The first director I thought that she should work with is a Wes Anderson after seeing this movie because
Mm.
the comedy and like the scariness is kind of like a funny blend to it. And what's one of her upcoming movies? She's going to be in Asteroid City.
Yeah, so black comedy. There you go. Wes Anderson, the
It's
king.
perfect. Perfect.
Yeah. I thought she was a standout here. I thought it was very similar to her character in Watchmen, except her character in Watchmen was much more serious. It's like she took that
Yes.
character and leveled it up a little bit. Like I was a huge fan of that. I thought she killed it in that show. But here, like to her to have those comedic chops in this type of movie, it really brought some levity. You needed that in a lot of parts of this movie because if it went straight in strict thriller, I think it'd be a little too much because there are some very dark elements here. But I thought it was interesting that even though it had those horror elements, I think it really did lean more heavy comedy. And I found myself laughing more than like biting my nails for the most part.
It's like the horror elements still had the funny comedic aspects
Yes.
in them.
It
You
wasn't
know, it
like
wasn't the
taking
other way
turns. It
around.
was just like a part of it. You know, it's just like this
Right.
is scary, but also you can laugh as you're watching it,
It's
which
like the
makes it such
most
a great theatrical experience.
it was like the most effed up things in this movie were still hilarious.
I
You
felt
know,
bad
like
for laughing, dude. I was laughing out
yeah,
loud, and I'm like, why isn't anyone else laughing? That was funny. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
right. So overall, like this was an awesome movie to watch. Great in a movie theater, like with other people laughing along with them, or like just being shocked or whatnot. Like this was a lot of fun to watch. Like I was happily satisfied in this movie with this movie.
And I do, before we give our scores and we wrap up the review, I do want you to talk a little bit about Anya Taylor Joy. This is another starring vehicle for her. She's coming off Edgar Wright, Last Night in Soho, Queen's Gambit from a couple years back, Emmy-winning performance, limited series. Now we have the Northman. So she's staying away from major IP, doing these original projects. How do you think she did in this film?
I'm not gonna lie, man. I think she was really good. I can't really call anyone for being bad. Maybe like the one of the three like finance bros, like uh I didn't particularly like, but it wasn't bad, but I I personally liked Hong Chow over her. I liked Ralph Fiennes over her. Then I would say that like Nicholas Hoult, I just think like understood the assignment and like did such a great job there. So I might put her fourth, but like also I could see myself like if seeing this again and putting her second. I think she was
Yeah.
good, but like she didn't have any of like the eye popping moments in my opinion as an audience member. Obviously with plot, like she did, but like I don't know, it didn't like catch my eyes and that was so like amazing. Great job by her. It was like, no, like it's just run of the mill. Like she did a good job.
I think after the first two acts, I was kind of wondering to myself, this really isn't like a vehicle for Anya Taylor-Joy. It's actually more for Ray Fiennes. But then when the third act started to take off, and it didn't really let up. It was actually after the beginning of when things start to go awry at the restaurant, where the movie takes off and it really doesn't like slow down. It's like pedal to the metal the entire time, but which is great for a theater experience. I think she did incredibly well in the third act. And I think you're right. It's not like I'm not saying she was the best thing I've ever seen in my life. I'm not saying any of these actors were the best thing I've ever seen in my entire life, but I also think they put in good performances. And where it's like when you watch back, you're just thinking this is not only a well-made, a high concept film, I should say, not even high concept, just like a fun, creative, unique concept, but like the actors bought in, and I think they did a great job. Like they just all were on a high level here. It wasn't someone that was slacking. So we say like she's fourth best, second best. Just she was one of the best. Like it was just a great.
Yeah.
It's a talent. This is just a talented cast. That's how I'll put it.
Yeah. Like sometimes like what do we do a lot in this podcast? We do a lot of analogies, particularly with sports. Like she put in a great shift. She put in a great shift, like hockey wise. Like you have a 45-minute shift. She put in a great shift. Or like she didn't hit a home run, but a gap double, like hit one in the gap for a double. Like she
And
did. That was a great hit.
yeah, and we talked about the tone earlier and like the mixing here. And this is a director who's not really known for movies. He's actually known for a lot of TV. Mark Mylod, I believe it is. He's known for Succession, and this had a lot of Succession vibes. Dark comedy right there too. He's done Game of Thrones, and he's done Shameless. All dark comedies. This is right up his alley. This is almost like just the easiest transition possible when you're going from this type of TV director to movie director. It couldn't be more seamless, especially with the relationship Will Ferrell and Adam McKay have to Succession. I think Adam McKay, at least Will Ferrell, and then transitioning over to the film. I think it was money, money, money.
Yeah, and one of the writers, Will Tracy, also worked with him on Succession as well. So like, there's a clear, cohesive group here between the producers, writers, director here.
And as we wrap up here, Ricky Flex, do you want to give a score for The Menu?
I've been debating with this one. I'm gonna go 84.
Wow.
84.
Okay.
I really liked this movie, man. I'm telling you, I really liked it. And the reason I have it in the 80s rather than the 70s is that yes, like would I really like to see a more ambitious ending? Like yes, but overall, like I don't really have a complaint that's like this was bad about it. Like this wasn't
Yeah.
like up to par. Like a lot of times movies in the 70s I think are good movies, but they do have a couple things I would have rather done that or not that I would have rather done that I would have liked to seen that actually would have enhanced the movie. Here it's like, yeah, I would have liked a different ending, but it's not like the ending was bad.
I don't think it was bad either. Um, I do think some of the choices they make, those small twists we're talking about, you kind of have to suspend a little bit of belief, and that's why I kind of marked it down a little bit lesser than you. I think the Hollywood ending, I think this movie had so much more. It was capable of like awards aspiration. I'm telling you, if they like stopped hitting you over the head so much, and that's why I'm putting it at an 80 out of 100, 80 out of 100 for The Menu. But like, I highly recommend for audiences. This is a spoiler-free review, so make sure you watch The Menu, and we'll guarantee you'll walk out of the theater with a positive experience.
My last comment on this, because I think you just made an interesting point there. Like, did I like think before the movie this had awards aspirations? No. Watching it and after leaving it, it's like this could have been like they could have made a push for it, similar to like a Knives Out, a Who Done It making a push towards an Oscar knob, right? But at the end of the day, like that's not what the goal of this was either.
Right.
So I
Mhm.
think just putting that in perspective, I'm not going to dock it for that.
Not
But I
bait.
will just,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It just wasn't made for that. And it's similar to like what we say with these superhero movies. You know, like they all have their tropes, their superhero tropes. And like, sure, some of them are overblown or underblown that we mark it down for that. But if it hits the nail on the head with the superhero tropes, then no, you're going to mark it down accordingly. So I think this is just kind of follows that same parameters, just in a different genre, obviously.
And like those are the best type of movies, the ones that don't have awards aspirations, they just kick ass and are amazing, and then like
Right.
we still talk about them. It's like it's Everything Everywhere All at Once. Like zero awards aspiration comes out right in the spring into the summer of last year, and guess what? We're still talking about it. It doesn't have any expectations going in, and then it blows you away. So like
Barbarian.
Barbarian, same category, honestly. And then like I talked about Get Out. Get Out had that. It was a summer release, but it blew everyone away. It was high concept, right? Well constructed film with amazing performances. People couldn't get enough of it. They couldn't stop talking about it. It's those movies that will help movie theaters, right? And this one, unfortunately, only made $9 million at the box office. Hopefully, because of word of mouth, through critic score, through audience reception, it'll improve. But we'll see.